Let's move on to the main topic, which is the Evil Within 2. So Tyler, briefly explain your Evil Within 2 story here.
Well, first things first, Ben. I think you and I basically have our opinions very well established. On I think one of your prior OP game shows, you
Yep.
basically did a video review of The Evil Within 2. Said apparently liked it, or had some sort of like about it.
Yes.
And my official review of the game at thegamefanatics.com has been published. You can check that out as well. And it's kind of weird because we're more or less kind of the same mind of it. Of course, Evil Within 2, Shinji Mikami's, I guess, second attempt at being the
But
master of
in this
horror.
one, from what I understand, he's more of a producer role and wasn't as intimately
Yeah,
involved. Yeah.
yeah. He was a producer this time around, and the director was John Johannes, which was he was actually credited as the lighting guy. Like apparently he was doing the lighting production of the
Hmm.
of the engine of the first Evil Within. Apparently he's been bumped up to director, and it's a weird beast of a game, and for me it's the kind of game I actually like to play more times than not during the year, because it's kind of a weird mess, but I can't fully call it terrible. I can't fully call it
No,
great, but I can't
that's
call
the
it
that's the
bad.
thing. Like my review, if I like think back to my review and I'm like, this sounds so negative. When the first 6 hours or whatever of the game, I loved so much. But it is, and we've kind of talked about this before. It is the death by a thousand cuts. Like it is just so many little things that are like, why is this here? Why did you do this? Why can't I shoot things correctly? Is like, oh, it's so baffling.
Almost every single time I've died in the Evil Within 2, it was never, oh no, the zombie got me, or oh no, the jump scare got me. It was always really. It was
Yeah,
always really.
I was
It
like,
was
God
always
damn it.
yeah. My reaction was never It was ugh, because something would go wrong. Like more times I can care to admit, I would try to fire a gun point blank, but because all the aiming is done, my arm would go through the zombie and shoot the wall
Yeah,
because that makes sense. And you can't shoot behind you or hip fire because that button is now slaved to the melee attack, and your melee attack is kind of
is
terrible.
garbage. Yeah.
You
Well, and
you can
that's one
make
of the. I was so glad you brought that up in your review too, because it was something where I was playing. I was like, this is happening way too often to not mention. Where I'm trying to shoot something and it's missing, and it's like this makes sense. Like the camera angle's so weird that it makes sense that the bullets wouldn't necessarily hit it, but from a
yeah.
player perspective, it's like, no, this is wrong. This feels wrong and should not happen.
And it's the strangest thing because I never had this problem with the first Evil Within, and
I did.
no, that's what's strange because the first Evil Within, they did just enough to justify this sort of sway they had with the gun, and I'm
It
like,
was a little
okay,
slower paced. I feel like.
yeah, and honestly, that's something I can say right now. The sequel is definitely, in my opinion, better than the first by a country mile,
Oh yeah.
and I do say that emphatically
Yes.
because I actually did like this very long deep dive feature about the original Evil Within. Once again, thegamefanatics.com. You can read that. Plug, plug, plug. But
Hmm.
for me, the first game didn't really feel like a cohesive game. It felt like just a grab bag of set pieces and creepy encounters and stuff, and some half baked ideas.
Yeah.
So when I saw Evil Within 2 saying, okay, we're going to make it a bit more action focused and we're going to take some of the stuff out that didn't work, I was interested because honestly, the unique selling point, or at least the vehicle for the game, STEM, the town of Union,
Yeah.
I think is decent. I think it's solid for what basically the game wants to be, and it's basically it wants to be a kitchen sink horror experience. It wants to be a bit of everything, a bit of
Yeah.
Silent Hill, a bit of Resident
And
Evil, a
that,
bit of Clock Tower, a bit of PT, a bit of you
yeah.
know, a
And
bit of Left 4
STEM,
Dead.
STEM allows them to do that, and that's
Yeah,
a nice little conceit that they built in. They're like, okay, fine.
it's a little convoluted,
It's
but
very convoluted.
it's unbelievably convoluted.
It rivals like MGS2 nonsense. Like, why?
Lolly lulelo,
And
nano machines.
and that actually makes sense when you play all the games. This still doesn't make sense.
Evil Illuminati wants to make the Matrix in order to make people happy, but they will control it, and they have to work out the problems. And apparently, it's powered by the brain of a forsaken child. I
It's
how did
so contrived. Like,
I actually kept for me I kept joking. I kept making the Venture Brothers reference. Like this feels like a half-assed Rusty Venture invention. It's powered by a Forsaken child, and
yeah,
but it's the Illuminati. It's fine.
like it could just be the Illuminati, but then it's like 7 layers deep of like, and this, and your daughter who is dead, who is not dead, and your wife, and you're this. Like, why? Stop it.
Oh
Too
dear
much.
me! I think statute of limitations have run out. I think on this game, but spoiler. I think the entire third act could have been removed.
I think here's how, and I don't disagree. I think the part once you start fighting the fire guys, like at that point on, you could cut 50 to 75% of that, and it'd be better for it.
The only thing I actually liked about the second half of the game, where you're fighting Father Theodore, the crazy cultist man, is that unexpected boss
Yes,
rush,
and that was awesome. That was like, oh, that was a payoff for 2 games, and it was perfect.
And honestly, I love that because I'm probably going to step on some toes here, but I think Shinji Mikami is good when it comes to gameplay fundamentals. Like, he does good at expressing the genre he wants to express through gameplay. But every single game he's directed or been a producer in has always been inherently campy and silly. And this game, Evil Within 2, tries to be serious, but in this one instance, it actually becomes self-aware and just becomes all the better for it. Like, the part I'm talking about, where like the entire game, Sebastian Castellanos, what the what
Huh?
what the hell? It's like, you've been through the first game before. You survived the first game. This should not be freaking you out.
I did.
I think somebody at RelyOnHorror.com did like a supercut of all the times he kept saying,
Oh yeah.
what the hell?
What the hell? Because he does. Like, as soon as you said that, it's like he does say "what the hell" a lot,
Yeah,
all the damn time.
with stuff he's used to, and I'm like, I can't take any of this seriously.
What the hell's that? Like, a demon. It's another demon.
What the hell?
Pay attention.
This is the same guy. This is the same guy who saw people getting like ripped to pieces by razor wire the first game and having no reaction at all, and then what the?
Yeah, he looks like a completely different character too.
I think that's more of a change in the engine. I think, but
yeah, no, for sure. But it is weird. Well, he just looks weird.
But yeah, that was bizarre. But for me, it was with Father Theodore, where he pulls back the monsters that Sebastian fought in the first game, and you're running from the Chainsaw Maniac again, like, oh, it's like the first game, and he has this "wait a minute" reaction, and then turns around and attacks him. And
that was cool. I feel like there could have been more payoff and build up to that than weird visions you kind of got, maybe, if you explored in the game.
Yeah, it's a hint at that. And I think that's probably the bigger problem. Like, it feels like a sequel in order to rectify the wrongs of the first game.
Without doing some of the amazing things the first one did. Like, I really enjoyed the boss fights in the first one where they weren't about fighting. They were about surviving and, like, running away. And this game's like, no, just shoot it all the time.
I actually had the exact opposite reaction, believe it or not.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't. I've mentioned before. I actually hated the first Evil Within because it was terrible at telegraphing those sequences. It was terrible at making it clear to the player that this is a moment where you have to run. This is a moment where you have to escape. This is a moment where you can't fight directly, or you're going to waste all your bullets. And with Evil Within 2, they do a better job of pacing it out. So when you do eventually fight a monster, it's like, yeah, no, you have the weaponry. If you can kill it, go for it.
But the difference, and I don't disagree, because it does have a very bad tendency of being like, do I fight it now? And like, I don't know. But
Laura, just Laura. From the
first yeah.
Screw Laura.
Well, once you play through it again, you're like, I don't need to fight her like ever. You just run away. But it built those characters up into something bigger and important, and that's why they can show up in the next game and be so impactful. Whereas this game introduces nothing.
Well, I think the closest thing to a setup was the photographer Stefano. I did like Stefano. I actually liked his build up with the Obscura and his weird artsy serial killer stuff with the time-stopping photographs. For me, that was good setup. I think he was actually a good villain, even if the battle was kind of tedious with his teleporting and stuff.
I think the battle is what killed it for me. It was like, this was probably the worst boss fight in the game, I think, was his fight.
if they did a bit more with that monster camera lens with the tentacles,
Yeah, yeah.
for the third act, that would been a bit more intensive. But I liked that build up, as you said, because they were seeding him out. Because the entire first half is he keeps toying with you with the
Yeah.
cameras and the setup, and when you face him, it's a bit of a letdown, but that was still a crescendo to his encounter. And then, like I said, for the second half,
It's
this is weird. This is weird because the entire almost I as a point of reference, I do my best not to look at other reviews from other outlets before I write for the Game Fanatics. It's a trick I do. But after I finished, I looked around and some bigger outlets are like, "Oh my god, the second half is so much better because it's faster paced and more linear and it feels more like an action game." Like that's kind of why I didn't really
but
like it.
and that's what it does poorly. It's not a great action game. It's a better stealth game. But the
It's
second half is like the worst part of the stealth. So
when it feels more like The Last of Us meets
yes,
Silent Hill, I'm with it. But
yes,
then when it tries to be Resident Evil 4.5, it's like, oh dear.
it's not like your mechanics are not Resident Evil 4 mechanics. You can't do it. So stop putting me in situations where you're trying to do it.
Oh my gosh! Like I think there was that firewalk level where you have to go through a gauntlet of zombies
Yes,
and you have like a little arena to
it
stay
was
in.
so small and you can't see anything.
I made my way through it, but only because I just kept kneecapping zombies and stomping them. I was cheesing through it, but
I don't blame
it,
you.
it didn't fit. But yeah, the second half for me also. Call me an artsy fartsy type, all you like. At home I kid, and I call myself that all the time. But for me, the whole impetus for the whole journey, Sebastian trying to look for his daughter, I thought was kind of rote. Like this this may give me some hot water, some people, but the trope of the neglectful father trying to save his daughter has, or at least redeem himself as a parent, I think has kind of been done a little too much recently in games, even in games I love, like The Witcher 3 and The Last of
Oh,
Us.
The Last of Us, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, I don't really care.
I
Like
just think it didn't like the idea of this character showing up halfway through and being like, "No, I'm the bad guy," was so like, but I don't
it
care
was
about what.
he wasn't really the bad guy though. He was just another guy that was with the group, and he's like, I can take over this world as well because I am the voice of the new world order. Which
It's
which I think fits because once again Shinji loves him some camp, and these villains are campy as heck.
I think
So
he needed to be set up before. But it felt like he came out of nowhere fast.
yeah,
Like,
that I think's the problem. Once Stefano's gone, the second half begins. He just shows up. But for me, the problem isn't that he showed up or he was the next threat. It was that they then decide to make it all about Sebastian's guilt. They make it all about how he neglected his daughter, and that's how he controls him, and that's how he's messing with his mind. And I'm like, you didn't do any of the setup. Like
yeah,
here,
yeah.
and in fact, it made me wonder more about some of the other things in the game that weren't resolved. Like I didn't go with it too much, but there's like a couple sequences where you go back through snippets of the first game against a sort of like ghost girl, sort of.
Yeah,
Never
this
gets
weird
resolved.
stealth ghost mission.
Yeah, it's like a one-off. You
Well,
never
there's a
face.
bunch of them. There's like 5 or so of them, but they
I
don't
only
go
ca-
anywhere.
I only came across one of them. Like I only triggered one of them
Oh,
in the
really?
start.
I got it to where she was like, she would pop up in the open areas sometimes and kind of hunt me around. I just had to run away. I didn't know what to do.
I only came across her once, and it's when you're going through that corridor mini game where you have to like look through the mirror and find the right door to go through.
See, I don't think I got that one.
Yeah, there's a bunch of these random sequences where it feels like you've been pulled back into like snippets from the first game
Yeah.
because they kind of look like the old game, and I went through it once, and I'm like, this never resolves anything. Like apparently, like they were hinting that maybe Joseph Oda from the first game may be alive, but not really. Um,
Yeah, which goes nowhere.
Yeah, there's much stuff that kind of goes nowhere. And once again, statute of limitations. The game's been out for. I've mentioned this before. The stuff with Theodore, I think, worked fine. My problem was like the very final 3 or 4 chapters of the game because it's such an out of left field twist that just kind of wants to pad the game out, and they really want to beat in the whole, family man, lost family thing with Sebastian because they kept saying
Mm-hmm.
because I kept saying the daughter's the core. She's keeping the world together. You need to get her out, or things will go
Oh wait,
bad.
briefly, can we talk about how bad some of the dialogue is? It is so goddamn bad. Like, did anyone read this? Can we get a second pass? Just a second pass. Just a second one.
I actually didn't mind the dialogue all that much.
Oh, it's bad.
Oh, yeah, it's bad. It's bad, but it's B movie passable. So I'm like, okay.
I get that's true. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. That actually kind of hinted that. Okay, this is very clearly this is like a major high end, high budget production, high production values, big sci-fi concept, B movie script.
Yeah, it didn't fit. It was be saying things like, and that's my daughter over there. I'm like, why are you saying that though? We know.
I feel so utterly bad about this person I was sworn to protect. Thank you for
like there's this moment where he's like his daughter's there and he's gonna like comfort her or something, and he should be saying like, hey, it's me, it's your father, and he's like, don't go, I'm here. I'm like, what are you saying? This is your daughter you've been searching for. Like, what are you doing?
Where's she going to go to?
Oh my god.
Yeah, dear.
But that's the last 3 chapters.
Yeah, the last 3 chapters for me is where it kind of lost me, because that's probably the most out of nowhere thing happening. Like with Theodore, there was some build up, like, oh yeah, he was part of the program, and he went all David Koresh.
He went rogue.
I think that's the closest thing I can call it. He went all David Koresh. Yeah, come after me, I don't care. And then they just pull out of nowhere that, oh, his wife was also in there, and she was actually the core of the entire time, and she's been confessed and corrupted, and now she's protecting the daughter because the daughter's still the core, but she's the core and I'm the core.
Okay, so plot-wise, it falls apart, but I think gameplay-wise, the last part is actually better than the tower with Theodore and all that nonsense.
I would say that. Yeah. There's some plot holes you can drive a semi-truck through the finale.
Oh, for sure.
Oh yeah, it gets really weird, but I will say it definitely picked up, because they actually allowed you for more stealth. They actually allowed for a bit more output. Although I get a feeling that the game expected me to actually pick up and use the sniper rifle and the assault rifle, because there's like a mini boss right before the final battle that kind of tore me through pieces, and I
loved that fight.
Dear. Different playthroughs, I guess.
Yeah.
But I did. But at the same time, it's the strangest thing. Like, I know this game makes really no sense. It's kind of like, as we've been talking, as you guys may have realized, this game's a hot mess. This game is a weird mess of stuff that works, stuff that doesn't work, stuff that's just kind of off. And like I said, the third act for me is where everything just it feels like the game just throws up its hands and says, screw it, let's just go back and pay off Sebastian's arc about being a good father again, and then he has to kill his wife, who's a horrible goo monster now, and then we get a big payoff where they race to the end, and wait, there's a shootout where his friend starts shooting some secret agent men of like,
which was cool, but also like dumb, like really stupid.
Once again, it was fun, stupid for me. It was cheesy, fun, stupid, and like I said, it is a weird game, because I gave it a 7 out of 10, and
yeah,
I gave it a 7 out of 10. But at the same time, I feel as if this is going to be a game I'm going to come back to and just replay every now and then. Like it's kind of become this odd curiosity to
there
me
is
now.
Something to it, and like the gameplay, when it works well, it's a ton of fun. Like, it's not bad. We've said that multiple times. It's not a bad game.
Absolutely, and there is, and I said before, there's a sort of appeal to it just kind of being a big old horror kitchen sink, where it's Silent Hill, Resident Evil, a bit of Clock Tower, a bit of Werewolf, a bit of a big old hodgepodge of horror stuff. And it's done really well. Like, there's so many shout-outs in this whole game. There's Twin Peaks references, The Shining. Like, if you love yourself some horror iconography, some creepy stuff, you'll get a lot out of it. And there's a lot to like, but there's just so much about it that's just kind of off, and I think that's kind of what makes it fascinating creatively. Like, this game, I feel as if had a bit more on its shoulder than some of the stuff, because I haven't seen a season pass announced for this thing. I haven't seen any major pre-order stuff for it, save for like that burst pistol, but I didn't get that.
And I didn't use it.
and also it's got a new game plus, and I never actually thought I would come around to actually enjoying seeing new game plus
So
back in the
the
game.
first one had New Game Plus, but also speaking of season passes, the first one had a season pass, and it
And some of the
actually,
and some of the best writing of that whole game was locked behind the
yeah, the
DLC.
DLC for the first game is excellent. Like it still has problems. It still has the same like why'd you do this choices, but it introduces like the cover mechanics, and it's like very stealth based. You can
And it
see like a lineage here very clearly from it.
and it actually explains what the hell's going on with Mobius
Does it?
and
Does it though? Does it?
it gives the Faceless organization a
It
name, and
tries.
it and it contextualizes the whole "it was all a dream" ending of the first game.
Oh my god, this it doesn't. They tried to make it make sense, and it just needs to make no sense. Like it just needs to be Crazy Town because there it's too much.
Honestly, though, I think that's actually why I liked Evil Within 2 a lot, because the first game just throws you into crazy and expects you to just go along with it. And for me, I was like, okay, I've given up even trying to make any sense of this. I'm just going to run and shoot and burn bodies until the credits roll and hope it kind of makes sense. Nope, screw you. 15 hours of your life gone. But
Oh my god, it's a big fuck you. That the
oh,
end of that game.
it's a major screw you. But Evil Within 2, it's like, okay, you're going into the Matrix, but it's gone all Hellraiser due to crazy people inside.
Reasons.
Deal with it. Also your daughter's in there. Go save her. Okay, that's understandable, and it's a good vehicle for that. And it just feels surreal just talking so much about this, but also New Game Plus. Like, I wish games now did more New Game Plus features, and
Hmm.
it isn't just play through again with all your stuff. It's like, oh hey, you beat it before. Here's new difficulty. Here's some costumes. Here's some new weapons.
Oh yeah,
And
when you beat the game, it's like here's 30 things. Like, all right, cool.
it's like, oh hey,
Toys.
yeah, like here's young Sebastian. Here's Sebastian's look for the first game.
Here's
Here's
Sebastian the
Sebastian.
Crab from The Little Mermaid.
Somebody's gonna mod that in, I bet you.
Oh, that's why I got the PC version.
Yeah, you with your PC. But oh dear, but it feels so detached from a lot of the more bigger stuff that came out this month, and I think that's kind of why it's sticking in my head. Like, it didn't have the Shadow of War microtransaction nonsense. It didn't have, you
It's a
know,
game from a different time almost.
yeah. And
It's
I think that's kind of why it's stuck in my head a lot more. Not just because I feel as if it was a very creative experience that just kind of went all over the place. Like, I think it's the reason why there was even a fan base of the first game.
mhm.
How honestly kind of avant-garde it really was as a horror game. It just kind of said, okay, here's what works. Now let's experiment with it. And
Yeah.
I think that's why I both liked it as I played it, but also could see also was a bit curious about it when it came to my critical assessment of the game, because 7 is not bad. I gave a 7 to Friday the 13th, and it still has a consistent fan base, more so than Dead by Daylight, and
Hmm.
that's perfectly fine. And while it's probably not going to be on my game of the year, come the end of the year, I'm still glad I played it. I'm still glad people have checked it out, and I think it was a good sort of experience to have during Halloween. Like, the marketing, putting it out Friday the 13th,
Hmm.
fantastic.
Yeah, it is a weird thing. I think in a lesser year, this would be in my top 10 of the year, but
Hmm.
it's so tough, especially with something like Resident Evil 7. It's so tough to be like, oh yeah, the Evil Within 2, because it's like,
We've
yeah,
had
but
so many good games. We've also had
like
so many good games this year.
yeah, too many.
Resident Evil 7, Prey. I'm still working through Prey, and I know you
Telling you, man, that's my game of
love
the year. That's still my game of the year, Prey. Still.
it's still a high watermark, I'll say that, but I think that's also why we've blown so much time talking about the Evil Within 2, just because
It's
it's a
interesting.
it's an odd duck. It's a really weird, odd duck. It's got good. It's got some fantastic. It's got some what, and there's so many little ins and outs. I only just found out. Like, I play usually now with my trophies disabled,
Hmm,
and
okay.
because of that, I only found out after the fact that I'm like in the only 3% of people who during the flamethrower fight actually killed him and prevented him from using the flamethrower for whatever reason. So I got his flamethrower at the end of the boss
Oh,
fight.
from him.
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, apparently there's actually a trophy where if you fight him in such a way, it's the trophy description is very vague. It says you prevent a disciple from using one of his toys. That's all it says.
Huh.
And how I beat him when I killed him and the cutscene played out, I got his flamethrower.
Because I got a broken flamethrower from him and had to get parts from the other guys.
Hmm. Yeah,
So I
but
still
apparently I
got
did.
it.
Apparently I did something
I
in
wonder if
order.
you just didn't shoot the tank enough. Like you just shot him.
I actually that's how I killed him. I think.
Well, I shot him. Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that's all it is. It's just a certain
I,
amount of damage.
I went through all of my shotgun rounds. Like I fully maxed out the shotgun thing, and I used those frost bolts and those
The nitrogen on the side
yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, 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 the nitrogen canisters. I just kept freezing him and just kept popping him in the head. And then he went down eventually once I went through like all 20, 25 of my shells and all 30,
I
35
know.
of my rounds.
That's what I love about survival horror games. You build up for the boss and you unload.
Oh yeah, it's a good feedback loop. It's why they keep it around.
Yeah. All right. I think we've talked enough about this game. Let's talk briefly about Wolfenstein 2. I'm going to switch over the display.